Hey folks, Doc here. I was out on a short road trip yesterday, and I got rid of that John Deere off-roader that I showed you guys in a recent video. I was getting it together, prepped and ready to trade off, and I traded it off. And I've had a lot of people inquiring in the Sprocket's Garage Facebook group as to what I traded it for. Well, today I'm going to show you what I traded it for. And then you can tell me how you think I did. Stick around. Just finished charging a battery. Right here. And I'm charging a battery so I can test start my new crate engine. Well, it's an engine in a crate anyways. This little gem here is a Kubota Z400. I say Z so I can sound American for all my American friends out there. It's a Z400. That's one of those language things that never made any sense to me. We were taught to say Z. Kind of like the Brits, I suppose. Anyways, this is a 480cc 2-cylinder inline diesel. And this engine here came out of a, let's see if I can get this right, a Kubota T1600 garden tractor. And I just happened to have the muffler left over from my Z400. Slightly smaller engine, same concept. The ratings on Tractor Data and a couple other websites I found showed this to be 13.5 horsepower at 3,200 RPM. I've kind of got the camera in tight right now, but it's in a crate. It's strapped down to my test stand. I've got that bottle there set up as a temporary fuel system. There's the feed line and the return line going into the top. I've got everything strapped down. I've got the fuel system primed. I've got the battery connected. And in a minute, I'm going to fire it up and see what happens, or attempt to anyway. Right, so this is your basic moment of truth here. I've got a wire connected to the glow plugs here. And I'm going to light up the glow plugs for about 20 seconds. And then just hit the starter solenoid with this Kubota key. We're going to go ahead and juice the glow plugs. And hope this thing lights up. I've got the belt off the alternator and the fan, so I don't accidentally take my fingers off. And of course, I'm not going to run it long because I've got no temporary cooling system hooked up. All right, here we go. Alright, so it runs pretty decent. Again, I didn't want to run it too long because I've got no cooling system hooked up. I probably could have gone a couple of more minutes, given that it's still fairly cold in the shop. I've got my hand on the head right now, and it's you know, it's warm, but it's nowhere near hot. But But, you know, obviously I don't want to risk hurting anything because these engines are, you know, gold in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the strap off, get it out of the way, and, you know, give you a slightly better tour of the engine so you can have a better look at it. Alright, so I've taken the strap off and I put the belt back on just so you can see how it's supposed to be set up. Obviously the belt runs off the crankshaft and it runs the cooling fan and the water pump and the alternator. That cutesy little alternator there is good for somewhere between 14 and 16 amps. I've seen specs that say either. So it's not really big. You guys might recall on my Z400 I hung a Delco 10SI to get me 65 amps worth of charge. And I might do that again. Standard spin-on oil filter. There's the water neck right there with the thermostat underneath it. And that cute little water pump right behind the cooling fan. And you've got the injection pump here with the throttle lever and the kill lever. That's the throttle, and that one shuts off the fuel to kill it. And the injector lines, the injectors, and overhead I'll just lean you over. You can just see the tops of the glow plugs there with that little bar there that connects the two. Intake pipe, fuel pump, dipstick, coolant drain. Now moving around back here, and this is what I like about the engines that came off these Kubota tractors, is it's got a double sheave pulley right on it. Now it's not very big, so if whatever I put this in is to go fast, then I've either got to replace that or set up a jack shaft or something like that, and I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. And moving around to this side of the engine, you can see the starter, and the starter's pretty big considering the size of the engine. Back side of the alternator. I believe it's unregulated. I think you have to have a regulator connected to the output of that thing. I've got to look further into it. Given the fact that the wires are both the same color and a pair of bullet connectors on it, they don't seem to be polarized, I'd say it's unregulated. One of the things that I love about these little Kubota engines is that they're just downsized little automotive engines. You know, you'd never guess looking at something like this that it came out of a mower per se, but it did. Here's a bit more of an overhead view. So you can see the rocker cover and the cylinder head, and a better look at the injectors, injector lines, and glow plugs and all that stuff. This is a pretty heavy piece of kit. This engine alone weighs 115 pounds or something along those lines, and that of course doesn't include the radiator or any of the other components, the weight of the oil, the weight of the coolant. But like I said, for what it is, I love these little things, and definitely going to power something with it. So then of course you're going to ask, what am I going to power with this little beastie? And the answer, I believe, is going to be Suburban Gorilla. That's right, you remember me introducing the project quite some time ago, and the object of the game was a diesel-powered 75 SEER Suburban SS16 that was going to be kind of a twin build with Suburban Commando, which of course has the 18 horsepower gasoline Vanguard V twin. Now, you guys know that I acquired the Kubota Z400, and I changed its assignment a couple of times. It was going to power what is going to become the Kaiser build. Changed my mind on that. I got a Yanmar for that that's a little bit better suited to the purpose. Now the thing with the Z400 is that I was working on it, doing a partial disassembly to get some stuff out of my way, and a bunch of the crankshaft bolts stripped out. Sure enough, I can fix that. I've already picked up some new bolts. I've picked up a tap in an appropriate size. I was all prepared to fix that and a couple other little issues that I detected along the way, despite the fact that it's a good running engine. And then of course the option on this thing came along, and since this one is a little bit bigger and a little bit more powerful while retaining the same package size, I think I'm going to go with this one here. So the Z400, I believe, was rated at 10 horse, 400cc. This one is rated at 13.5 horse, and it's 480cc. And like I said, I believe the package is the same size. I haven't looked up the technical drawings yet, but I'm pretty 99% sure of that. So I've got some issues to work out, the same issues that I had putting the Z400 in the Sears. Just trying to make clearance for the driveline, the belt, the flywheel, the starter, you know, having it in a lateral orientation as it would in the Suburban. And as you can see, I couldn't even use this exhaust setup right now if I wanted, because there's the belt right there in the exhaust. However, that being said, all things being equal, the manifold from the Z400 should fit on this thing. So that might get that out of the way, but that still doesn't solve some of the issues I had. And that was sinking the engine down into the frame. Now I've got flywheel interference, and is the pulley too far over? So I've still got to solve those issues. But the long and the short of it is I do believe Suburban Gorilla is going to feature this Kubota Z480. So I guess it's time for another diesel Sears to show up on YouTube. So I hope to get started on that project shortly. I kind of stalled out when I hit some of the other issues and just decided I was going to leave it alone for a while. And now that I've got this puppy in my possession, and clearly it's a good runner, perhaps the fire's been relit, so to speak. And yes, I do have a bit of an engine hoarding thing going on. You know, I like diesels and I like unique engines. I recently picked up, as some of you might be aware, a Kubota Z400 diesel. 3-cylinder inline, liquid cooled, much like this package, just, you know, add a cylinder. It's pretty much the Z400 plus another jug. Picked that up in a non-running state, and I don't have a diesel compression tester, which obviously a gasoline compression tester won't fit, and I haven't had the time, patience, or inclination to noodle around with it. So that one's going out the door probably later today, and I'm okay with that. I decided that this package size was more appropriate for things that I'm likely to stick an engine in anyways. So I had a fella that I do a lot of trading with that was interested in the engine, and I said, well, if I get the Z480, you know, you can have the Z600. So as far as I know, he's coming over later today to pick that sucker up. You guys know that I picked up those 2 APUs with the Yanmars in them, 2 TN73s I think they were, and I sold one off, and then I hung on to the other one for a while, and the other one I actually traded off for that Z600. And, you know, it wasn't a horrible trade. I think that Z is actually in fairly good shape. It just needs maybe the rings freed up or something like that. It feels like it's got compression. Anyways, I decided that, you know, I didn't really want the Yanmar. I'd rather stick to these Kubotas if I could help it. And so the one trade and the other trade, and long story short, when the option came up on this one, I decided, yeah, I'm going to take it, and yeah, it's probably going to go in Gorilla. So anyways, enough rambling for now. Thanks for tuning into Sprocket's Garage and sharing and subscribing and all that stuff. And hopefully I'll get to plopping this in Gorilla sometime soon. Until next time, take care of yourself, okay? You know what? I just can't help myself. I want to fire this pig up one more time before I put it away for the moment. I got to clean up the shop. I got Buddy coming over. Got to get the other Kubota dug out for him. But I just can't help myself. I want to get this thing lit off one more time. So a little bit of glow and a little bit of go.